All right. Well, are you ladies good to get
My
started?
Christmas brooch.
Ooh, nice. Very nice. All right. So, thanks for coming to book club again. So, we know Ashley and Danielle who were at last book club. And did you guys want to say anything more about who you are, what you do?
Well, I will just, advertise that I am
Absolutely.
also modern mind body mummy. So I talk about mental and physical health tips on Facebook and on Instagram. And being a part of this book club is a goal for my mental health to spend more time reading and less time on screens. So thank you to Carlynn for organizing it and
Well, you're
helping
welcome.
me stay motivated and inspired.
Well, thank you. It wouldn't be a book club without, a club. So thank you for coming. It helps me too. And did you want to say anything, Ashley, before we get started about like what you do or?
I am a teacher. I teach with Carly and in elementary. So I also love just reading new books on all different kinds of topics and being able to talk a little bit about it with you ladies.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. That is awesome. So the book we read was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. However, she is not completely fine. So I'll just read you the book blurb on the back and then we'll jump into the questions. So no one's ever told Eleanor that life should be better than fine. Meet Eleanor Oliphant. She struggles with appropriate social skills and tends to say exactly what she's thinking. Nothing is missing in her carefully timetabled life, where weekends mostly consist of frozen pizza, vodka, and phone chats with Mummy. But everything changes when Eleanor meets Raymond, the bumbling IT guy from her office, whose big heart will ultimately help Eleanor find the way to repair her own profoundly damaged one. Smart, warm, and uplifting, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine is a story of an out-of-the-ordinary heroine whose deadpan weirdness and wit make for an irresistible journey as she realizes the only way to survive is to open up your heart. Any opening thoughts before we dive into question one?
It's so good.
It is so good.
And it was a nice, easy read. Like there were some hard topics in it, but not as hard as last month or last time. But it was like easy to read. So once you got into it, you felt like you were making progress and you could get through. And I enjoy that in a book when life is busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually didn't start it until this weekend and I got through it easily. Like I knew I would have time to get through it because it was an easy read. As soon as I started and I popped off the first couple chapters, I was like, okay, we're good. Question one. When did you start to suspect that Eleanor Oliphant was not, in fact, completely fine?
Well, for me, it was like right off the bat, like page 5, when she's buying Chianti and 2 bottles of vodka just to get through the weekend. Like I was like, oh, just kind of having to numb herself to get through the weekends. So I think
that was the first thing for me too, and that stuck out in my head the whole time was the 2 bottles of vodka to get
and
through the weekend, and she just thought that was kind of normal.
And it wasn't alarming to me. I don't know. Like at that point, I was like, okay, she likes her vodka, but she's all alone. It's not harming anybody. And at that point, that's what I was thinking. And so for me, it didn't actually click in that there's something really wrong with her until the social worker came for a visit at her house, because I was like, why is an almost 30-year-old still having a social worker pay her visits. And then that awkward conversation with it being a new social worker and not knowing the details of her history, and the comments that you spent a lot of time in the hospital, of course, when that was what the social worker said. And that statement when she said it, and I was like, oh, okay, so why was Eleanor in the hospital, and why was Eleanor so awkward to talk about being in the hospital? But yeah, the vodka, to me, like all the beginning stuff, I was like, okay, well, she's just different and likes her vodka.
Also, when she said, like, there was a page when she said, I do exist, don't I? I feel as if I'm not here, a figment of my own imagination. I could blow away like a dandelion. So then I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question 2. Eleanor has very forthright opinions. Did you find yourself sympathizing with any of her controversial views? And does her forthrightness make you uncomfortable or make you cheer for her?
I loved her quirkiness. Like, I thought her bluntness, I mean, I could see how people could be offended, but for me, oh, sorry, my dog's in here. I think she just says exactly what she thinks. And, you know, like, of course that can be harmful, but I also find it kind of endearing because sometimes you need that friend who's just going to be like completely honest and blunt with you. And you know, if you know she's like that, you're going to prepare yourself around her to, you know, to be like, okay, this could be harsh criticism coming.
Don't take it personal. This is just how she is. I loved the scene when it was right at the beginning, page 16, and she was getting the bikini wax.
Yes.
And she didn't know what she was asking for those people that will watch and don't know the book. But yeah, and I wish I would have written down what she said, but she just freaked at the end, and I thought that was hilarious. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, she was mad because she looked like a child, right? Because
right,
yeah, it was.
What is it? Do you think he wants? That's right. She was mad because the man of her dreams
wants a real woman.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where I thought, like, that I totally agreed with that comment. And I was like, we need more people saying that in this world. And there was other ones that I didn't agree with, but it was written in such a blunt yet funny way that it came across great. And I was like, yes, good for you.
Well, and it's interesting too now, because now that I know how the book ends, and I look back at the very beginning of the book and the awkward conversation that she had with the doctor about her painful back and getting the medication for her painful back, it makes me question. So this awkwardness, like, how much of it is the awkwardness and how much of it is manipulation to get what she wanted in that time, which was pills.
And a learned coping mechanism.
Right?
Like, she
hold on.
Manipulate a lot.
Yeah. We're just freezing for a second. Looks like it's not freezing. Can you just repeat what you said, Danielle?
I said it was a learned coping mechanism. So as she grew up, she needed to do some manipulating to get her needs met, given the circumstances that she was in.
Right. Absolutely.
And she just also, again, like, kind of thought that was fine. Like, that's how people behave to get their needs met. Whereas other people, like the doctor or the social worker, might not have agreed with that.
Right. What did you think of her, Danielle? Did you like her forthrightness?
Yeah, most of the time. And the way it was written, again, it makes you laugh, right? I could see how people would be confused by her. And sometimes when she would be, I wish I could think of a good example, but when she would be like, everybody does this and I don't know why, I was kind of like, well, the way you're looking at it is kind of strange, lady. But she was if she was kind of okay with where she was at, then good for her, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, once we see the end, like, yes, she was quirky, but we find out that lots of people really did care for her and find her endearing with all her quirks, right? Especially like her boss, for example, right? So everybody's different, and we need to be okay with that.
And it also shows how, even though, like you said, all these people care, her cloud, she couldn't see it. Like, yes. Written from her perspective, she felt so alone.
Yeah. Yes. And she didn't think anybody understood her.
Right.
But again, we see at the end, like with her coworkers, we know you don't like a big show, so we didn't put on a big show. We just gave you flowers and wanted to say welcome back. So they knew her and they understood her in a way that she didn't know when she was in her cloud.
Absolutely. All right, question 3. Why does Eleanor feel sorry for beautiful people? And do you think there's some truth to her reasoning?
Well, she said they always have so much to live up to. Beauty is always slipping away and you're always having something to prove. So there is more to you than just the surface, right? So in a sense, I see that, how she would come to that, thinking that, you have it, and as you age, your beauty is, so they say, slipping away. So every day you're losing more of your beauty is how she's looking at it, because she tends to look at things very literally, right?
Right.
So yes. I could see how she's seeing that, like, oh, tomorrow you're going to be a little less beautiful, and the day after that, and the day after that. But yeah.
I remember her saying that she aspired to be average. And she said, I've been the focus of far too much attention in my time. And that was what made me think about, I do think that there is some truth to it. And I only speak through a friend who is incredibly beautiful, as we age, whatever. But in her teenage years, she told me a story about how she was bullied by the girls and harassed by the boys for being really pretty. And she was really pretty. And then I could see where Eleanor said that she aspired to be average because of that attention. And I think depending on who you are and how you respond to things, and that is possible.
And I think of like movie stars, even, right? Or pop stars, any of those kind of famous people, right? As they age, they are less appealing to be in movies, and people don't want to listen to their music as much, and people are, they become the topic of conversation of how well they've aged or how well they haven't aged, and they're selling all of these creams to make us less wrinkly and all the plastic surgery that famous people have because they feel this pressure that to be worth something, they need to be beautiful. And I feel for those people too. I mean, I have a hard time with my gray hairs and wrinkles, even for myself, and I don't have the same amount of pressure. Like, I don't need my looks to keep my job, but some people do.
Or I look at how even Britney Spears was treated in the media. Like, whoa, there is something to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it seems the world is overly critical of those people, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes in the book makes me wonder, because Eleanor is so perceptive sometimes and so naive other times, but it makes me wonder if she's like willfully naive, kind of, that she's like, this is how I want to look at things and I don't want to pay attention to what's going on over there because I don't want to learn more about it, kind of makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Too scary, or will my mind be able to cope with it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, question 4. Describe Eleanor's relationship with her mother. Why do you think Eleanor keeps in regular contact with her? Oh, her mother.
Obviously,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say my view on that, because we had the questions before we read the book. And so I was thinking about that through the whole book. And obviously my view on that changed completely in the last 3 pages.
Yep, totally. So I tried to answer the question without knowing the twist at the end. And I put, she was so messed up and there was so much abuse that I think that, one, Eleanor blocked the traumatic events of the past and then continued to allow herself to remain in the abusive cycle. But even that answer still is influenced by the knowledge of what happened in the last 3 pages. And she was lonely. And so why does anyone ever stay communicating with an abusive person?
Yeah. I said it was like a victim relationship, like it's a trauma-based relationship, and I forget what it's called, what it is when you kind of fall in love with your captor. Yeah, you fall in love with your captor, right? And it just becomes that person because that's the only person you have contact with. So, but then when you get the information of the end, I said it's like a haunting, like she just cannot get rid of that person. She can't detach from it. She can't let go of it until she's healed, right? So she's stuck in this cycle of trauma, basically.
And I agree with all of that. And I see in the work that I do as a social worker, I see like families that your parents are your parents. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that you are supposed to have, and they for you this unconditional love. So you have this connection that it's your parents. It doesn't matter how poorly they treat you, they're part of your blood, so it's hard to let go. But then she also had nobody that was a constant in her life ever. So she moved from foster home to foster home. I guess she had the job for however many years it was, but she didn't feel a connection to anybody there, and she didn't feel like if she felt like if she left, no one would notice. Mm-hmm. And so she was hanging on to dear life for that one connection that she had. And I think that's part of why we could see her get through some of the stuff that she got through, is because she realized she had Raymond, who she was connected to, and then made her realize all the other people she was connected to, and he helped her get stronger connections. So then she was able to let some of that go because she finally had people. She felt a sense of belonging, and the only little bit of sense of belonging she had was when she was 10 years old, and she couldn't let go of that.
Raymond just makes my heart so happy.
I love him.
He is such a good human, a fictitious human.
Yes.
I wish he was real.
Yes.
He's
agreed.
All right, question 5. Little gestures of kindness mean a lot to Eleanor. Why? Do you think people overlook the importance of thoughtfulness?
I think it's a good reminder, right? That those little things, they're little, but they can add up to big things. And I think just going off of our last conversation, she hasn't known a lot of kindness. So any tiny little bit, she is going to, soak it up as much as she can. And I kind of love that about her, that she just is grateful for the little things, right? A lot of the things we might overlook because we have lots of kindness in our life, but for her to just, and I'm thankful that she was getting those little trickles of kindness, because
Yeah, how
And-
easy would
and
have
for
it been?
her, the little things are big things.
Yeah.
Like they might seem little to us,
True.
but they're huge to her. So that's why she notices them more. But
Yeah.
It would be super easy to overlook them, I think, if someone isn't in Eleanor's position.
Mhm.
And I thought a lot of what you said too, I had wrote down, I guess it's important to remember how something small to you can mean the world to someone else.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was a nice part of the book.
It's kind of like that saying,
Well,
like everybody's fighting their own battle, right? You never know what other people are going through. So one little tiny gesture on somebody's worst day can be change that day right around, right? Can be life-changing almost. So.
And on the flip side, you catch someone on a bad day.
Yeah.
It can send them spiraling because you have no idea what they've already been going through.
Yeah.
And I was like kind of impressed with Eleanor and how she could, I know she's fictitious, but how she could see those little things. Like, yes, they are big things to her, but sometimes people who are in their cloud or their they don't know what kindness is. They sometimes can question people's motives.
Mhm.
And as quirky as she is, she has found a way to cope and be resilient and can hang on to those positive things where some people in her situation might not be able to. So I think it was cool that she was able to do that.
Absolutely.
It made me love her even more.
Absolutely. Question 6, right? We're on question 6. Okay. Did you have any theories about what had happened to Eleanor as the story progressed? And if you did, what were they?
I had lots of thoughts, just all ranging in different types of abuse, right? Or trauma, or I knew there was something fishy about her mom all along, right? And the way that she like just was so rude to her and always was kind of trying to cut her down and never have her think better of herself, you know, like she would say some nice things and then at the end she'd have to bring her right back down to her reality, I guess. So I don't know. And then it wasn't until later on that we learned about her scars. Oh, sorry. But yeah, I couldn't, you know, pinpoint something. I just knew that there was something terrible that had happened to her.
And fairly early on, wasn't it, that we learned Mummy was in jail?
Yes.
Right.
So then that also made you wonder.
Right. Well, and she never actually said jail because I kept on looking and reading and I was
really?
like, yes, I was like, is she in jail? Does it say jail? And it didn't. Because I kept on looking and I was thinking, okay, so then is she in a medical treatment center? Where the heck is she? I assumed that she was in jail because of the scars and the fire. And so I assumed she was there for abuse and intentional fire, but what kind of abuse, I had no idea.
Well, and it's interesting because I swore it said that she was in jail, in prison. Because that's just one of those things about like what we hear or what we read, we interpret through our own our own lens, right? So I could have sworn to you that it said that's where she was. Well, because I interpreted it that way and it stuck.
And maybe it did, but I do remember going back and checking, like, did it say jail? And I couldn't find where it did. So maybe it is.
I'm just gonna look now because
yeah.
Because I wonder where I got it from. But
I also found it interesting that she nonchalantly told Raymond about her ex-boyfriend's abuse of her. Mm-hmm. Like it was no big deal. But yet she couldn't talk about Mummy. And mm-hmm. she couldn't talk about some of these things that, okay, you were in a fire. Like, that is horribly traumatic. But your boyfriend was sexually assaulting you repeatedly. and hitting you and kicking you, and you just openly talked about that with Raymond.
Yeah. And emotionally abusing her and all of those things, and talked about it like this was just normal.
Yep.
Until Raymond said, basically, you realize that's not how relationships are supposed to be, right?
Raymond is a hero in
Yes.
so many ways. Question 7. Were you hoping Eleanor and Raymond would end up together or dating? Why or why not? And do you think they might get together later after the novel ends?
I so hope they get together later after the novel ends. Yeah, I think he like basically saves her from herself, because yeah, that was the only like real bond that she had throughout the book, like special bond, I guess, where constant, where he was, you know, making an effort, asking her out for lunch all the time, and you know, she felt safe enough to confide things in with him. And I just think he sincerely wanted to help her and look after her, and it was, you could feel it. It was like a genuine thing. Even just reading about it, it was like, okay, this is nice.
And I wonder,
Yeah, like he didn't really.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, he didn't really seem to pity her. He just was a kind human.
Yeah, there was no agenda for him, right? He wasn't.
Yeah.
Trying to get anything out of it.
Yeah, I loved Raymond. I would love for them to be together after the story, but I'm also okay with it if they just remain friends, as long as they remain as close as they currently are. Like, whatever is right for them.
However, I didn't really like his relationship with Laura, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like she treated him, you know.
But then there was the redeeming. They weren't right for each other.
No, but after the fact, when he told Eleanor that, oh, I don't see it working out between me and Laura, I was like, oh, okay, thank you, Raymond, because I was thinking you were going down a slippery slope.
Well, and at the end where she kisses his cheek or whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, right? That's probably a big deal for her.
Huge.
And I feel kind of differently, I mean, than you. I was really happy that they didn't end up together. I just felt like that would have been too predictable. Like, I like that we can have opposite sex friendships in this world, and it doesn't need to be romantic. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Eleanor needs friends. She needs a pal, like they called each other. She needs a pal to, you know, help her feel connected, and he can be her, like her brother, like her family. And I think that's what she needs more than she needs. Like, and his mom is great for her too, right? Is a motherly figure for Eleanor. So I kind of don't want them to be in a romantic relationship. I want them to be like family to each other, and for Eleanor to know that like family exists without having to have a boyfriend. Because apparently that's what I don't know, she thought her mommy wanted, because she was working on this project that was creepy.
Well, that's right. And I would I want them together, but ultimately I want her to have a long-term healthy relationship.
Yes.
Like, yeah. And so if a relationship might put that at risk, don't do it. Just stay friends, because you need someone long-term.
Yeah.
Yes.
Forever. Like,
yes.
All right, question 8. Raymond tells Eleanor that she deserves nice things. Why do you think he feels that way, and do you agree with him?
Yeah, well, of course she does. I mean, she works hard. She's a good person. She is a survivor of many things. So why not? Right?
Yeah.
Who
would say she doesn't deserve
nice things? Of course she does.
Of course she does. Yeah.
And I think we all do. Like, I think everybody deserves nice things. People who, well, maybe 99% of but majority of people who do bad things are doing it because they're hurt. Mm-hmm. And if some of those people had more nice things, then they maybe wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So I think everybody deserves nice things.
Totally.
Except for a very small percentage of people who are really just
horrible humans.
Beyond help.
Which they're probably horrible because they've had horrible things happen to them. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Which is traumatic and sad in itself. All right. Question 9. When does Eleanor start to feel hopeful about her life? What signs of positive change did you notice in her day-to-day routine?
I think when she started, I mean, she was doing them for the wrong reasons, but she started kind of investing in herself more. She got her hair done and she bought some new clothes, and she started going out for lunches and socializing and trying to make friendships, and she cleaned her house really good, and she got the pet, right, and was, you know, keeping something alive even though her plant died, but you know, so yeah, she was kind of like investing in herself, even if it was for the guy. She shouldn't, you know, she should have done it for herself other than the singer guy. But yeah, that was a positive part. Of course, then she has her, you know, bad day moment after that. But leading up to that was when I was kind of hopeful, like, okay, she's, you know, stepping out of her box. She wants to be around people. She's not just closed in as much.
And that's interesting because I never thought of it from like the very beginning. And that's when she started changing. But you're right, like probably Raymond stepping out, going to the concert, helping the guy that fell on the street. Mm-hmm. That probably was all the spark that led to everything. I had reflected and put that I thought her change started when she started seeing Maria Temple, the counselor, and how she finally got Eleanor to talk about her sister and her mother. And then it was shortly thereafter that she spilled her story to Raymond. And then that was when I thought I saw the healing start. And maybe when she got the cat and found out that that was something like how when she got the cat and Raymond started telling the story about how he found it and someone was lighting the barrel on fire, the cat was. Right. And then he said he used stronger words than I would use. Not in that situation. I would use those. I'm talking on YouTube. I wouldn't use the word. Anyways, what page is it? I took it down, 271. Who would do such a thing, Raymond? I said when I could finally speak. Both he and the cat looked sad, sick.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wonder if hearing that, like hearing him denounce how horrible those people were, that maybe to do that to a cat.
And do you remember, because he knew about her mom and the incident before she did,
mm-hmm. Right?
Would he have known about it when he brought her the cat?
I don't know. Good question.
Because he did say, I think he would have known, because she said there was a fire and somebody set the fire, but she didn't know anything else about it other than that. So I think he would have known that.
And then they went for coffee or lunch, whatever. And he said he found these articles and she got mad at him.
Yeah, he did.
Probably
so
did.
He knew before she did, right?
Right.
So I just can't remember where in the timeline the cat came. But anyway, it's interesting. Can you, that question, the one we just did, can you ask it again? Because I had a thought.
When does Eleanor start to feel hopeful about her life. What signs of positive change did you notice in her day-to-day routine?
Yeah, and I think the way that you answered the question, Carlynn, and the way I understand what it's asking are kind of two different things. Because I feel like, when did she start to feel hopeful? It was like she seemed to feel hopeful once she saw the musician, and she thought, oh, there is a hope that someone is going to love me. So
Right.
She started to feel hopeful. But I don't feel like that was healing. She wasn't starting to heal until the therapist, and I would argue also just even when Raymond showed up, because she'd been missing for a couple of days. And I think even that act of, oh, I thought I would float away like a dandelion in the wind, and there are people here who are paying attention, I think that started the process of healing, which is different than hope to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because, well, and like Ashley said, now I'm thinking all the way back to the beginning. Were those little positive changes at the beginning what started it all? And did she have to hit rock bottom to truly heal?
Yes. And I think that all of the hope that she had, she had Sammy, was that his name? The guy that they had helped that had fallen?
Yeah.
Sammy, and even and his family, who seemed to care and acknowledge her kindness, and she had Raymond, and she had all of those things, and having that hope, I think, is kind of what allowed her to crash. Because I think if she had just been fluttering along like she had been her whole life, it wouldn't have hit her as hard, and she wouldn't have had that rock bottom that she maybe needed. I don't know.
Right. I mean, you never want anyone to need that rock bottom, but usually that seems to be the way it goes. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard.
All right. Question 10. How did you feel about the ending of the book, and did it change your perspective of Eleanor? Spoiler alerts coming. Do not listen if you plan to read the book.
Well, on to that, were you guys surprised by the ending?
Shocked.
I was too, so I'm glad I'm not the only one.
And I even cheated, and I skipped, I was halfway through the book and I was like, how the heck is this going to end? And I skipped to the end, and it didn't make sense yet, because it must have happened the chapter before the last chapter. But I read the last chapter. I'm like, oh, good. Her and Raymond are happily ever after. Blah, blah, blah. And I even read the line about goodbye, mummy. And I just took it as a literal goodbye, mummy. Yeah. I'm not going to talk to you on the phone no more.
That's how I took it too, when I read that part. Yeah. I wasn't surprised about the sister, or that it was the mom that set the fire. None of that surprised me. There was enough little things throughout that, she would often, even close to the beginning, and I don't know exactly when, but she would say we would do this, and I was like, oh, was a sibling. Yeah. And so I that part didn't surprise me. It was whatever it was in the last 3 pages, that once they read the newspaper articles, that I was like, what the heck? Were you surprised, Ashley, or did you see that coming?
In the house. Yeah. No, I was really surprised when they said that they had found 2 bodies burned in the fire, and that one was the mom and one was Marianne, or whatever her name was. And I was like, oh my gosh. So
I had to read it
and then
4
at
times.
that moment you're like, okay, yeah. Element. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to go back and read it, like Danielle
but
said. Sorry.
I think to the question is, I feel like she's finally on her way. Reset her story, and she gets to, start fresh with friendships, with herself, improving herself, all those kind of things. So what was that part of the question? What was the question?
They're kind of tricky questions. Yeah. How did you feel about the ending? Did it change your perspective? I shouldn't say
don't think it changed my perspective. I still loved Eleanor the whole way through. I just felt like, wow, the trauma she has sustained to still have that person haunting her like that, and to have lived with that and not have really known what had happened. Like, you know, I know they say that people do block out really bad things, but it kind of made me feel more like attracted to her, and like I didn't pity her. I just felt like, oh, I need to give her a hug or something, you know. And I do feel like she's in a good place at the end, and she seems happy. And I do, you know, if there was a second, I feel like she would be going off in a good direction now.
I was blown away. I had to reread the articles, like Danielle said, 4 times, because I was like, wait a second, 2 people? 2 people? How is there 2 people in her? Did she have 2 siblings? And I couldn't even fathom that it was the mother that died. And that she was hallucinating this whole thing. And then like when I was going over the questions after, I literally was rereading parts, and I was just like, I have a whole different perspective of Eleanor right now and the struggles she's going through than I did the first time through the book.
And I could see, like, she had all of that, like her mummy talking in her head. Like when it came to food, she had these hoity-toity thoughts about food that she was battling with. And she had like all this negative self-talk about how she was stupid and ugly and all of that. And I was like, okay, well, that I can see. Like you would carry that with you your whole life. But like you said, the whole every Wednesday night, the hallucinations of the phone calls, like that, I was like, really? That was all fake? And they were so detailed in the way that it was. Like her mom was shouting in the background about the movie they were going to watch. And I was like, that was like, just shocked me.
Yeah. The stories she created in her mind.
Yeah. Because she needed connection to somebody. And that's the only way she could get it, I think, for such a long time. And then she started skipping those phone calls because she was out with Raymond at whatever it was on Wednesday night.
And you know,
she
it's
still
something
carried that guilt that she missed it. Like,
and even though it's a fictitious book, I think it was a good reminder that we can all create stories in our minds that maybe aren't even close to real. And how closely are we listening to those stories?
Yeah, it shows how powerful the mind can be in a negative way too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But then it's also super hopeful that you can turn it around. You can hit that bottom, and then you can get through it, and you can be healthier on the other side.
And even before she met Raymond, how resilient she really was. Like, she has been through like the worst thing that anyone could ever be through, I think. And she was like still doing pretty good for herself. So as much as our brain can tell us horrible stories, our brain can also get us through really hard stuff and be okay. She wasn't completely fine, but she was getting by, right?
And it was eye-opening to me too, to know she had, like you said, she was resilient through the hardest things of her life. And then a relationship didn't work out with a rock star. And that was what sent her over the edge.
Yeah. And that was just, I don't know. I mean, it was such an important part of the story that I liked it, but I didn't like that guy. Like from all the tweets he was sending, I already knew that I didn't like him. And I didn't like her behavior of like stalking him almost.
Yeah.
She says I'm not a stalker, but she kind of was.
When you go to his house and pretend to deliver
and listen outside his door.
Yeah.
And it was, I didn't like that side of her. And I'm glad that she got to a point where she got through that without too much damage to herself or others.
Okay, so closing thoughts. Would you recommend the book? Did you like it? Anything that you feel we need to talk about kind of thing before we close this book club?
I definitely recommend it. I loved it. I also really liked at the back of the book how they had that conversation with Gail Honeyman, how she kind of answered a few more questions like, where did you get the idea about Eleanor? And talked about, like, you know, her falling in love with a musician, and just extra kind of little facts about them, and then what you're working on now and things like that. So I think it was like almost like a little bit of a sneak peek farther into Eleanor's life and how she came up with that character. I really loved that too. Just a little extension of the book there, but I thought it was really
that, so I'm glad you pointed it out. I'm going to read it after this.
It definitely surpassed my expectations, even just reading, you know, when we chose it to put on a list of one to pick, I think I was like, oh, it'll be, you know, nice and good, but I thought it was really good.
I just noticed, I looked back there, I haven't read that part yet, Ashley, but I just see it. This is Gail Honeyman's first novel that she ever wrote. And it took her 2 years to write it, and she had a full-time job as she was writing it. So that's pretty cool.
It's a fabulous first novel.
Right? And it was already on the shortlist for Lucy Cavendish Prize in the United Kingdom. Yeah. What a start. I guess my final thoughts would be, I really liked it too. And even though there was really heavy topics, it wasn't gory like the last book that we read. And so I could read it. It made me laugh out loud. I had actual tears running down my face at times. I was able to take it and transfer lessons from the book into real life, make those connections. And at the end, it was a happily ever after. So and by happily ever after, I mean, who knows? It leaves it open, but I'm going to assume it's happily ever after with her BFF Raymond. And and it was great.
Her coworkers and her new job and the Christmas luncheon at the aquarium. Is that where it was going to be?
Yeah.
And like all of those things that she has going for her right now. I just love it. And her new haircut.
Yes. And I hope that if there was a second book, that she maintains that inner strength where she's just Eleanor and she is her weird whatever. I loved at the end when the co-workers were like, oh, Eleanor is back, when she's like, well, I guess we better get to bill payable or whatever.
Yeah.
I also liked the part when they went to that concert and Raymond was laughing so hard because she was like freaking out about the music. That was like one of my favorite parts in it too. But
that was awesome.
And I was going to comment on this earlier too, but I loved how she described Raymond. Like, and I loved that she was like, he talks with his mouth full and his pants are saggy, but she didn't like those things about him, but she still really cared for him in the end. Yeah. And so like she could see that relationships don't need to be perfect. And you don't need to love everything about a person to have them be your best friend or your family or whatever they are. So she could see that. And I thought that was an interesting lesson to bring to real life too.
You're right. One of the parts that I laughed the hardest at was when she's like, I just can't look at Raymond while he's eating because it's so disgusting or something like that. I was like,
and then at one point she said, and that was, and that's never going to change or something along those lines. And she was okay with that.
Yep. That was wonderful.
And I think that I'm going to re-gift this book because I liked it, and I think there's other people in my life that need to read it. So if I don't think the person I'm thinking of giving it to is watching, but if you get it, well, it's because I loved it.
I know. It's funny that you said that because I was thinking, I was like, I should give this book to someone. It's finally a good book. I never thought that about All Is Not Forgotten. Like that one, I was like, I'm not giving that to that's too hardcore. But this one, you're right. It is a re-gift worthy book. After I read it again with the perspective knowing what I knowing at the end.
Yeah. I very rarely reread books though, so I know. I have a huge collection of them. I have a hard time getting rid of them, but I very rarely reread them unless it's like Harry Potter.
Right. I'm going on to 5 years in a row of reading The Philosopher's Stone right away, so.
Oh, really?
I might have to move on next year. Read a different book, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But it was awesome to do book club with you ladies again. Thank you so much. I love it.
Another one in the new year, do you think?
I hope so. Are you guys willing? And I love it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's not rush it. Like, let's go till February. Give ourselves some.
Yeah.
Does that sound good for you guys? February?
Cool.
Well, I won't keep you guys any longer, but again, thank you so much. And I love it. I love this. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Carlynn.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.